Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Monroe MustHangs. I'm your host, David Spiegel, and here with me today, one of the longest tenured coaches in Monroe College history. Please welcome head men's basketball coach, Jeff Brustad.
Thank you, David. Glad to be here.
Thanks for coming on, Coach. Coach, you just finished your 18th season at Monroe with plenty of accolades to go with that. 8-time district champion and district coach of the year, 12-time Region 15 champion and coach of the year, 8 different appearances at the NJCAA championship tournament, many All-Americans and student athletes that have gone to the Division I and Division II big-time programs, a couple guys that have even reached the NBA and others playing professional basketball all across the world. What do you attribute to a lot of this success to?
Well, first of all, like they say, when you're raising kids as a parent, it takes a village to raise kids. It's kind of the same philosophy here at Monroe College. I was able to get into this position through Stephen Jerome, and they've given me a platform to basically, coach their basketball team and educate their students. And it goes all the way from the athletic administration to the admissions department to the professors and staff, support staff all around the college that's enabled me to have our success and kids to have their success and other programs to follow along suit. So it's basically a whole moving operation that I've benefited from and many student athletes have benefited from. So it's a village. It's really a village.
Of course, we'll hit on a lot of the history of the program and your time at Monroe, but the first thing I want to start with is this past season where your team had a ton of success, finished the year 24-9 overall. After a couple seasons kind of just missing out on the district championship, this year you guys ran through the Region 15 tournament, big win over Harcum at a big arena at Westchester University in Pennsylvania. Went on to win the district championship on your home court against Hagerstown Community College. And then, of course, as we all know, obviously the pandemic hit and the NJCAA championship tournament never happened. And unfortunately, we weren't able to go there. Our women's team, same thing, suffered the same ordeal. No tournament for them as well. So what was it like, working through this season, getting back to the district championship and winning it, just for it to come to an end like that?
Yeah, this past year, there was a lot of factors involved with, Coach Barrett, a new coach on my staff, working with him for the first time. And, we've had our ups and downs in terms of, getting the team on the right page, as any program goes through every year. So, we did a good job. We brought them together and won the games we needed to win. And we're really kind of gelling towards the end of the year, especially like you said with that win down in Pennsylvania against Harcum. Great gutty victory and kind of, labeled us as that type of team. We were a really gritty team, and to then take care of business at home versus Hagerstown in front of the home crowd was tremendous. And then basically you had the rug pulled out from under you. And we kind of joked about it now, like the season that never ended. You had a team, you were ready to go, and you always like to put your team up against the best in the country, and that's just the competitive nature of players and coaches, and so we never got that chance, and nobody ever got that chance because ultimately the whole tournament was canceled. But the initial feeling when it struck is just like that sick feeling in your stomach that you work so hard for something, and win or lose, you want to win or lose, at the end of the day, and you never had that chance. So it was really heart-wrenching not to be able to finish out the season. And I'm sure years down the road, when you speak to some of these players and talk about the season that was, or the tournament that wasn't, it's going to be the season that never ended. And that's a tough pill to swallow in the moment. And, as time goes on, it'll ease on. But, that was tough. That was tough for us.
I can imagine. So, and we've had a number of other coaches on the show over the past 10 weeks that have talked about similar experiences, especially the one day when we had to tell everyone else that their seasons were ending. Just obviously not not a good situation and one that we hope to never have to deal with again.
Yep.
But again, it doesn't take away from the season that your team had. Another big season, 24 wins, almost unbeatable at home. We went 17-1 at the MAC. And I think it just kind of speaks to, the consistency of the program. I've been at Monroe for 3 years, and all I've seen is success out of the basketball program. So, but as I said before, you've been with Monroe, you're heading into your 19th season. And I want to get in on the history of this. You graduated from SUNY Oneonta in 1990, eventually did get your Master of Science degree in Recreation Education at Lehman College. Mm-hmm. And not only are you a coach at Monroe, but you're also a member of the faculty. So where did this all begin? When did you decide you wanted to get into basketball, especially coaching basketball, and then eventually turning it into a career?
Well, it started, you got to be true to yourself. And at the time, I'm an educator. I like the classroom, I like the court, and there's a lot of parallels between those two areas. So back, after the completion of my undergraduate degrees, there was Colgate University is where I grew up, and Jack Bruin was the head coach at the time back then. And he was a very joyful man and was embedded in the town and hung out with my father and things of that nature. So I was able to kind of, work camps and stuff like that at Colgate University and be around, a Division I program. And he helped me get my first job at Casanova College up in upstate New York. And I worked there for a year and then was able to land an assistant's job at Sullivan County Community College, closer down towards the city. And that program was embedded with a lot of success, I think, coming off a national championship before I got there. And the 2 years that I worked there, we won 30 games both years, and we went to the national, tournament both times. My first year there, I think we were pretty close to being undefeated and played in the national championship game. And to be quite honest with you, we lost on pretty close to a half-court buzzer beater to lose the national championship game. And that was heart-wrenching as well. Came back the next year with kind of a slogan of 8 is enough. We had 8 players and ended up going to the national tournament at Delhi, New York, and winning the national tournament. So I got a taste of that. And at the time, Monroe's basketball program was just kind of starting. And we played them a couple of times, Sullivan versus Monroe. And I remember the one game we played them at, down at Lehman College, and the place was packed. And so just going through that year and obviously Monroe was up and coming, and I would take trips down to the city to scout them, or at Horace Mann High School where they were playing. And I had an opportunity one day to scout them, and there was probably about, a dozen people in the crowd, and one of them was, President Stephen Jerome. And I had an opportunity to sit for the whole game and talk with him, and we had a nice conversation. And, fast forward to a year later, Steve DeMeo, who's the head coach, moved on to Iona, and they brought me in, and they brought me into, to Monroe, and with the then assistant Charles Jackson, and we kind of paired together and worked 7 years together. So, it was a cultural change for me to come from, upstate New York down to the Bronx, New York at the time, because a lot of Monroe's endeavors weren't taking place in New Rochelle as much. So everything was in the Bronx, and that was a culture shock for me at the time. A lot faster than upstate New York. And but I started out in admissions and did some teaching and was working with the program as an assistant coach and was able to do what I love. So, a lot of this goes to Stephen Jerome and the friendship that we embedded together that day in the gym, and it kind of just took off from there.
And that explains why we've seen now Chairman Jerome show up to a lot of your games throughout at least my time at Monroe, seeing him in the stands for a lot of men's and women's basketball games.
And it's been their whole family, everyone from Mark and the whole family has, I've been involved with all of them in different, projects and events, and they're great people, great people.
I'd certainly say so. I wouldn't be here without them either. Um,
Yeah.
so obviously, probably a couple of years into having the job, in 2003, it was the first time. I guess not even a couple of years, but in 2003 was the first time that you won a region championship and district championship with this team. So what was it like getting that first title win?
To be honest, it was my first year as the head coach. So basically, my first year as a head coach, we end up taking a team that wins 30 plus games and go all the way to the national tournament. And I think we ended up losing the game to San Jacinto at the time, but we ended up playing 4 games out there, going like 3-1, and just the whole experience was surreal. And you think as a first year head coach, having all of this success from a team and going to that level and to Hutchinson, Kansas for the national tournament, you almost say to yourself, well, this is easy. We can do this every year, and which obviously isn't the case. But I mean, it was great for the college. Just some of the events that were taking place. I remember we had news cameras and news crews in the school, King Hall, following us as we walked out of the hallway into the bus for the trip to the airport. We took a camera crew to Hutch, Kansas. I mean, it was the whole ordeal, and it was all over Bronx News. And I remember we practiced in different gyms before we took off, and our practices would be filled with camera crews and just interviewing kids and, big time, St. John's, all these coaches in your practices. This was all year one. And it was like, year one for me. Obviously, Charles Jackson did a great job, and Steve DeMeo and the coaches before, but this was all year one for me. And it was, it was a lot. It was a lot. And it was kind of like, the team was kind of like rock stars, that whole aura of that. And it was fun times. It was fun. When we went to that year, when we went down to the district final, I think we had to go down to, Aiken, South Carolina, I think it is, to play Aiken. And actually, I was just talking to Chairman Jerome about this the other day. They took a bus and drove a bus down there of family and friends and administrators and teachers. And it was just winning that down there was, because this was all fresh, this was all, new snow. We were putting fresh footprints in this, and it was good times back then, good times.
I know I've heard many stories about a lot of these bus trips for the administration and staff heading down to a lot of different basketball tournaments. So those definitely do sound like good times, and of course something that we want to continue as this, as the success of the program continues. You said it kind of seemed easy that first year, but the next couple of years didn't quite, make it back to the national tournament. Did win the region championship, but didn't get really past the district championship again until 2006. So would you say that those were more years that the team was once again growing, and you as a coach growing as well?
No, I just think there was other programs, around the East Coast here that, had, revenue put in these programs, and they were good programs. I mean, you had Allegheny Community College, which, the University of Maryland was putting players in there to hide, or a feeder system, and the level of competition was tough. And I remember, we'd have to go down to Allegheny to play a district final, and those were tough games. And it was, just the level of competition was different. Junior college was viewed differently at that time. And, with the Hagerstown and the Allegheny, some of those schools down, traditional junior college powerhouses, and we were kind of new kids on the block. And it was tough sledding for a little while. Nothing that, we were doing wrong or anything like that. It's just, it's competition, and you got to earn your stripes. And we had the first year we had a lot of success, but to continue that, that shows you the work and dedication needed to continue it. So that's, wasn't anything we did wrong. It was just, we were growing. We were, we were filling out what we do and how we wanted to operate and things of that nature. And it was a process.
Well, as I mentioned before, you've in your 18 years, you've gone on to win that district championship 8 different times, which is, no small feat at all. especially also winning the Region 15 championship 12 different times. Just a lot of consistent success out of this program. But with that consistent success, you've also had a very large number of impressive student athletes come through the program. And, we've had, I think I have it as 13 different All-Americans at the Division I level for this program. Most recently, you had Juan Felix Rodriguez, who became just the second student athlete in the program history to win or to earn an All-American status on 2 different occasions in both of his seasons with Monroe. So who are some of the standout athletes that you've had throughout your tenure, and what does it kind of mean to the program to be able to produce such highly productive athletes that then go on to continue their careers at big schools and even sometimes go to the pros?
Well, first of all, it's having great assistants that recruit their butts off and get good players for us, and that's number one. And, there's when you look at some of the past assistant coaches that have come through this program and where they are now, we've got guys that have come through Monroe as an assistant coach, and they're assistant coaches on big time Division I programs. Some have their own programs. Some are working professionally in other areas. So some of these coaches, we've got some coaches that were on my staff that are head coaches at Monroe, with Coach Warner, who was on my staff. He's now a head coach. Chris Neely was brought in under us, and he's now the head coach of the Express. You had Garfield Johns, who worked on my staff. He coached the women's program, and now he's right up the block at Iona, working for the legendary, Rick Pitino. So, you're only as good as your assistant coaches and your players. So that's number one. I want to get that out the way. But, number two, you can go back to my first year as a head coach, and I just posted a picture of these 3 guys, kind of one of my original big 3s, which got us jump-started. Ryan Williams, Kevin Bell, and Kingsley Edwards were all New York City basketball players that jump-started that program, put a big breath of fresh air into the program year one. Kevin was out of Rice High School, and Kingsley was a transfer that came from another junior college. He was from New York City, and you had Ryan Williams from Cardozo High School. So these were 3 kind of transfers that came back home for that sophomore year and really jump-started the program. And then you kind of go through with guys like Rich Jackson from St. Raymond's High School that came through Monroe, and he was on that team that went to Hutchinson, Kansas, his freshman year. And you can go up to Maurice Endure and Orlando Sanchez, who helped, they were right in the middle of a 3-year span where we, went to Hutchinson, Kansas 3 years in a row, and right up to just as recently as Juan Felix Rodriguez. Juan, and Juan was a great story. And basically embeds what Monroe College can do for student athletes. He was a young man, and when he came to Monroe and worked on some things and left here and at Stony Brook now, he's a man, and he's one of the going to be a vital cog in Stony Brook's program this year, probably for the next couple of years, and academically. He's way ahead of schedule of what he was doing before he came to Monroe. So that's just a product of what Monroe can do for student athletes.
Now, of course, we could take a lot of time to go through every single one of these All-Americans and what they meant to the program, but 2 guys that really stand out, Orlando Sanchez and Maurice Endure, because these are 2 guys that did end up getting attention and making it into the NBA. So what's it like for a coach to know that you kind of helped push 2 student athletes that were able to make it to the highest level, even if only briefly?
Well, 2 great young men, and this goes beyond basketball. You're talking about 2 young men that, Maurice does a lot for his country, home country, Senegal, even to the day. Giving back and running programs over there. And Orlando does the same thing. I just spoke with Orlando, this past weekend about another potential student athlete that could really benefit, and we could benefit from having him at Monroe College. So you're talking about 2 guys that have continually gave back to the program. So it speaks more to their character and than anything else. And that's the recipe for success. You get good quality people your program's going to be quality, and that's that goes a long ways. And those two guys, when they were here, Maurice played his freshman year when Orlando was a sophomore, and I remember some of those games against. I mean, we had number 1 versus number 2 in the country, in the MAC against CSI, College of Southern Idaho, and it was surreal stuff, and it was because of them. They were they helped bring that program along to that level, and it was just great times. But it speaks more to the character of the kids that we were bringing in.
You mentioned actually that Maurice does a lot for his home country in Senegal, and I know when the program started, a lot of focus was on a lot of kids that were coming from New York. But since then, we've seen every year I've been here and before then, a lot of international student athletes that come into this program. What does it mean to be able to bring in athletes from different countries, and what's it like acclimating them to your program, knowing that there's going to be athletes from all different cultures and backgrounds and meshing them all together?
It makes us stronger. I just think, initially it provides you with some challenges, to a certain degree, but, struggle makes toughness. The more you struggle, generally the better off you're going to be in the end. And that's kind of been my philosophy, all along. You want to get a good mixture of, types of people and types of games, and, the European game mixed with the city game, mixed with this and mixed with that. I just think, I never want to put all my eggs in one basket, in terms of how to play a game or the people that you want to recruit. So diversity is the key for us, and diversity in your playing styles. We can get out and press you for 40 minutes, or we can sit back and play zone for 40 minutes. Or, just being able to be diverse in what you do and how you do it makes you tough to beat. And that's kind of been my philosophy all along. You lose one European guy at this position, we look to kind of fill, because I like that dynamic there. And so it's kind of a combination of a lot of factors, but diversity is the key word here.
And one thing I want to go back to is that you'd mentioned a lot of your assistant coaches and how they've gone to success, but one in particular, Coach Dana Warner, was a longtime assistant and associate coach for your team. And in the last couple of years, there was an opening with the women's basketball program, and there was a push to have him become the head coach of the women's basketball program. So what's it like? Of course, you've seen a lot of coaches go on to different kinds of success, but what's it like to see him move over within the same college, moving over to the women's game and watching him work with that team now?
Well, I mean, it just goes to his abilities, his work ethic, and it gives me an opportunity to see him grow in that aspect. I saw him grow. I mean, it goes back even before then. When I was assistant here at Monroe for then Coach Charles Jackson, Dana was a player on the team. So I coached Dana, and, Dana was headstrong as a player. And so I had a relationship with him back as a player and as a student. He was in my class. I taught him. I taught him at Monroe College in math class. So to see him come from there all the way up through to being on my staff, the rookie on my staff, and pushing his way all the way up to the head assistant on my staff. And then, the opportunity came to where, and like any assistant, eventually it's time. It's time for you to call your own timeouts. And he was ready for that. And, he had that opportunity, and he took that opportunity with the women's program. And, it's good for me to sit back now and watch him work. And, we talk about ideas all the time. He pops into my practices. I stay and watch some of his practices, and because, we're back to back. So, we're still running each other all the time. But it's just good to see, for me personally, see what he liked and uses now and what he didn't like and doesn't use now in terms of some of the things basketball-wise. But, Dana's a good guy, and he's worked hard, and I wish him nothing but success, and because his success helps my success, and and it helps the college's success. So it's all fine with me.
Hey Mustangs, I just wanted to tell you about the brand new Monroe Mustangs sideline store, powered by our apparel partner BSN Sports. Create your own unique piece of Mustang gear by choosing from hundreds of apparel options, colors, graphics, and your choice of the new Monroe Mustangs logo collection. Throughout the month of October, you can take 20% off your order of $85 or more by using the promo code OCT20, that's OCT20 at checkout. Visit the Monroe Mustang Sideline store at monroecollegemustangs.com/shop and gear up for the new school year.
And one thing you've hit on a couple times, and we mentioned it before, is that not only are you a coach at Monroe, but you're also part of the faculty, and you teach here, and you have for a long time. So one thing that has been a common theme when I've spoken to other coaches is that a lot of them do feel like they are educators in a way, because you are educating a bunch of young students and helping them move on to their next school, trying to keep them in line academically. One of the strengths of Monroe College has always been academics. Even this past season, we had 10 different programs that earned NJCAA Team Academic Honorable Mention, with a couple teams even winning Academic Team of the Year. So what's it like for you to actually be on the other side of things in the classroom with a lot of students, especially even a lot of our student athletes across a lot of different teams?
Well, I mean, one hand washes the other. It makes me a better coach. You know, when I'm teaching, you teach mathematics to, students or student athletes or whoever you have in your class, not everybody learns the same way. And, you as a professor, you have different, strategies on getting things across, to certain, students. Like some don't, visually aren't good, some need this, some need that. Different, maybe show them the whole thing and then work your way back, or other people you got to show little steps along the way until you get to the big picture. So there's different philosophies when you're teaching, and they're the same philosophies that you're going to use, in your, on your field or on your court or whatever, sport you are teaching. It just happens to be, basketball for me, and it's the same way. Some need to do, need to inch along till we get to the big concept, or some like the big concept right away and work our way back. Some you can really come down on and be stern with them, and some you gotta, coddle along the way. So there's different philosophies that you gotta use, and those are the same philosophies that you use, in classroom, because, not everybody's the same, not everybody learns the same, and you've got to adapt as a professor. That's your profession and that's what you do. Same with coaching. You can't coach everybody the same way. You can't recruit all the same players and coach them all the same ways. And you just got to be ready to adapt. You got to be flexible, because at the end of the day, you do a great job and you recruit these kids, and you think you're getting this or you think you've got that. Then all of a sudden, when you really, put it on the table and start working with it, well, he's not really what I thought he was going to be, but he's good at this. So you have to be able to adapt on the fly. Same way in the classroom, you can get ready and, you may got to cancel that quiz because we're not ready. We need to do this. So you intermingle the two concepts, and at the end of the day, I'm an educator, whether it's math or whether it's basketball or whether it's teaching my son, how to do this or how to do that or how to act. It's all related. It's all related.
That is one thing actually you just mentioned at the end that I've always been interested in is that you do have your son around a lot for practices, games, going on the road. What's it like to experience a lot of this with him right by your side?
It's great. I mean, you joke a lot of times, and when you're a little older, you grew up differently. You know how it is with whatever your parents do, you generally do, and at the same time, the situation that he's been dealt, he's a single parent. He's with me all the time, but that's not a bad thing. Basically he's being, raised in a locker room, and there's a lot of things in a locker room that are very, very beneficial to, a person. You're talking about teamwork, you're talking about dedication, you're talking about work ethic. These are all qualities that, every parent would want their son to have or daughter to have. So he's actually able to see it firsthand at an earlier age. And it's not, just making him a better basketball player. It's making him a better person, a better kid. And that ties into a lot of things. It ties into the diversity that we have on the team and meeting kids from, different cultures. We talk about Germany because of, when we had Toby on our team last year. So he's in tune with a lot of this stuff, which can only help him, in my opinion. And yeah, he may hear some colorful language at times and things like that. But at the same time, I'd rather have him here next to me learning these things than learning it, up in the playground or what have you. So, there's a lot of benefit to it. It's hard work, it's hard work dragging him around, as you can imagine. But, he's good. He's a good kid. And it actually puts, some of the players, on notice, how they act in front of, a younger kid. And, he loves Mohamed Ugi, who plays at Stony Brook, and they used to play one-on-one before practice. And now, you know how it is when you post things on social media. Mo's one of the first guys to react to Maddie. Hey, Maddie, great job, this and that. So he's built these kind of friendships with some of these older kids, and they get to see him grow as he goes through his, into his teenage years soon. So it's good for both, I think.
I'll say from my perspective on that, he's always looked surprisingly mature for a young man his age. The way just knowing that he doesn't even need to be supervised while you're coaching a game is just, it's incredibly impressive. So I'm sure it's been a wonderful experience for you to be able to kind of watch him grow up on the basketball court with your team as well as everything else that he does. But
he gets and he benefits from it too. He understands work ethic and intensity and things of that nature, which should help him in the classroom. You know how it is. Sometimes you get student athletes that don't always do the right thing, and they may get suspended, they may get this, they may fail off, which you don't like to happen, but sometimes it does happen. And those are direct messages right to my son. Hey, listen, you have to do, you got to do X, Y, and Z to do this. And it's just life lessons that he is able to see in real time at an age. And that's, that's important. That's important. That helps me, raise him as well. So that's important.
It definitely is. So as one of the longest tenured coaches at Monroe, you've seen almost every single change that's gone on in this athletic department, whether it's different athletic directors, different administration, different sports information directors, different facilities. What has been one of the biggest changes that you think was able to benefit you directly and the basketball program?
One of the changes that I benefited from? Well, I just think that, we put a blueprint out with the basketball program. It was kind of one of the first programs that really kind of took off, and they put resources behind and they saw the benefits of it. And I just think it paved the way for a lot of these other programs to kind of spark up and go. And, if you told me back in 2003 that we'd have JV programs and that we would have a whole nother, sports program in the Bronx campus, that would be hard to believe. Although, Chairman Jerome at the time was talking about, an A team and a B team, which basically turned out to be, the Mustangs and then the Express. So he had vision of this clear before I did. And obviously that's why he's Chairman Jerome and I'm Coach Brustad. But, at the same time, the success of the program basically, which I benefited from, obviously, but a lot of other people benefited from. And at the end of the day, if Monroe is able to, put a situation where a kid can be on a team, and I truly believe that being on a team, whether it's a basketball team, a football team, a volleyball team, at the end of the day, being on the team, helps you in the classroom and just, the whole structure business. And that's important, that helps everything else. And I think things you learn on a team and are so beneficial. And I think Monroe gets it when it comes to that. They do support teams. They do want, full rosters of people enjoying the experience, which in turn helps them in the classroom. And at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do.
I know everything I've heard in my time here is that the basketball programs kind of got everything for Monroe in terms of athletics and laid the foundation for every other program to now exist. Football coming on a number of years ago, and even having programs like rugby and the marching band, and as you said, expanding into the Bronx and bringing all these teams to the Express, and they're expanding as well very quickly. So, I think if it wasn't for the success of the basketball programs to start with, a lot of this wouldn't be here today.
Well, that was just because, at the time basketball was easy. That was the easy sport to do. It wasn't this or that. In New York is a basketball town to a certain degree, but it's just, if it would have been volleyball, it kind of would have been the same thing. If you started a volleyball program back then that really took off and you put the resources behind it, you would see the benefits of that, and then everything else would fall into place. So it just so happened that they chose basketball, which I'm very grateful for, that they put the resources and the effort into that. But, it was basically the first step to a big vision that the administrators of Monroe had, that, hey, listen, we get this going, then we get that going. It's going to really help with, with enrollment and the success and the retention of our student athletes. And it just took off from there. And it's all, do we still have room to grow? Of course we do. We'll continue to grow. We'll continue to work on different things, whether it's, facilities or whether it's, whatever it is. But, there's still room to grow. There's still things that we could do that are going to really benefit the student athlete at the college. And so it's, I'm excited to see what's around the corner, once we get out of this little hiccup here in society, once we get around this corner and see what Monroe has in store for us next. I'm excited for it. The students will be excited for it. And, it's good things.
And, again, the success of that program leading to pretty much the success of every single program. I mean, this past season before it was cut short, I think we had every single NJCAA-sponsored program go to a national championship tournament or some sort of national spotlight, like the football team making a bowl game, all the soccer teams, the volleyball teams, the basketball teams, everyone was going to the national tournament. So, it would have been exciting to see what the spring season brought on for us as well, but unfortunately it didn't happen. But that does bring up the next topic, that obviously this is going to be a bit of a different year for all of college athletics, really, but especially the NJCAA and more specifically Monroe College. This year's, we have nothing going on right now in the fall, but as soon as the winter semester begins, it looks like we're in full swing, and that means your season gets off to start a few months late. So what's it like trying to get ready for a season, when students are on campus, you've been practicing, and you don't have a season until, instead of starting in October and November, you're starting in January. So what's the approach there? Are there any advantages to having all this extra practice time beforehand, or is it, what are some of the challenges of trying to slow things down and get ready for a later start?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely creatures of habit. And when you think back to, every year you have a practice plan, and I kind of go back in the practice plans and you say, well, it looks like I have a group like this. I know back in, 2010, I did some of this stuff, and you go back and you look through the plans, and, it's detailed. It's, by week 3 in October, we were at this point, we were at that point. So the timing of everything is obviously thrown out the window. So now you have to kind of gauge, what's important, when's it important, when do we got to put it in? And I guess, the philosophy we've kind of taken here in this first semester is more with the individual skill building of our student athletes and kind of more working on the individual stuff to eventually put it together as a team stuff. And that's challenging because you don't know how quick to do stuff, when you need to have stuff in, when it could all end. You could be put on hold for, 14 days. You never know how things are going to go. We've had, we've got a transfer student here, a big kid who's going to be vital to us. And, he had to take a quarantine period, and all of a sudden he's not in practice with you. So there's all kinds of, bumps in the road along the way that you have to navigate, which basically, it comes back to flexibility. You've got to be flexible in your teaching. You've got to be flexible in your timing, and you've got to be flexible with how you're going to approach everything. And in addition to the staff being flexible, your kids have to understand that. And that's the tough one. And, this year we're blessed with a great group that has great chemistry. And I'll tell you, that's the one thing with all this togetherness and is the chemistry is a lot better at this point of the game than it has been in previous years. That's, as a junior college coach or any coach, chemistry is always key to what you're trying to do. And a lot of times, we're different than a 4-year school. We're different than an NBA team because we're not going to have the same roster, every year. And there's more roster shakeup in a junior college than it is in a 4-year or in a professional team. So chemistry is always kind of the first thing that you start to work on from day one when kids step on campus, because obviously the chemistry and the togetherness can pull you along through things. And this year, the chemistry was right off the bat just because of, going to get tested together. We're quarantining together. We're doing this together. We're eating together. We're this together. So it kind of fostered that relationship a lot quicker than in previous years. So that's been a blessing. Now, when you want to get to the actual basketball stuff is when you've got to kind of maneuver your way through some obstacles. But the chemistry has been key for us so far this year, and has enabled us to handle these bumps in the road a lot better than if it was in a previous year.
And the thing I'd like to kind of wrap this all up with is that around this time every year is when we would start seeing the team for the first time. The Monroe fans and the staff and myself, especially, about a week ago last year, we were having the Monroe College Jamboree that we have every year, and then we played a couple scrimmages, and we'd get our first look at the team. But unfortunately, this year we don't really get that right now. So, what are some things that we should be looking forward to? What are some things about this team that would be good for us to know going into the season when we do finally get there?
Well, I mean, we've got a nice group of sophomores returning from last year's team, and in the hopes of these kids that come back, is that there's a level of hunger, because basically they had something taken away from them last year, the opportunity to perform on the highest level. Therefore, coming back and not having that should fuel the team, and you couple that with some quality freshmen coming into the program for a first time this year, and a couple of transfer kids, to add some maturity. We've got a good mix. We've got a great transfer, Rostik Novinsky from Seward County Community College, a 6'10" kid from the Ukraine, who's really talented and can do a lot of things for us. Next to a guy like Julio Pascal, who an energy guy that had some vital roles for us last year, coming back a year mature and ready to go. So that's important. And then, you factor in another transfer, Brandon Hodge, that actually played at Allegheny Community College 2 years ago when they beat us on their home floor to go to Kansas. So, there's a little, there's a little issue with that as well. But, he's able to provide some maturity to the team and some experience that's much needed. Luis Herrera and Jamani Eaton that played a lot of point guard for us last year. He's coming into his own now, where the ball should be in his hands, and how is he going to react to that? So we've got a lot of exciting things and chapters of a book that still need to be written. And I'm excited to see how it ends. The only issue is we're not going to be able to open that book for another month or two to really get it started. Obviously when you look at the calendar, usually we're starting, this weekend coming up or the next weekend, and that's not going to happen this year. So, it's just put on pause here for a month or so. And, after hopefully a nice Thanksgiving and Christmas vacation, we come back playing basketball.
I've also had a couple short conversations with Coach Barrett recently, and there's a lot of times where he just can't stop gushing about pretty much every player on this team. So I know it's one thing I'm looking forward to when everything starts up, is that there's always so much excitement around basketball season, and it's one of the things I miss right now, is that we should be getting ready for it. But all in due time, I think we're going to be ready for it. But Coach Brustad, I want to thank you for joining me today on Monroe MustHangs. I really enjoyed this conversation. Of course, you and I will definitely be talking more as the weeks go on. Is there anything else you want to let the fans know before we wrap this up?
No, just, listen, I hope everybody has a safe and happy holidays coming up, and come back ready in January for some nice, Monroe College Mustang basketball and women's basketball. And I'm looking forward to seeing the football team play. That's one thing I miss, is cool weather, going to a Monroe football game and, with your team and just kind of that energy. And we don't have it right now. So hopefully, everybody gets a little, nice vacation, Thanksgiving right around the corner and Christmas coming up, and recharge those batteries and come back ready for a lot of college sports. I'm excited for it, and I think the country's excited for it. So we're happy.
I would say so. And Coach, it's definitely noticeable that you are one of the bigger supporters of not only just the basketball program, but all the programs at Monroe. You're pretty much consistently at every different sport at some point or another. So I know I appreciate it. I know the other coaches appreciate that. But again, I want to thank you for joining me today. For those watching and listening at home, Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube at Monroe Mustangs YouTube channel. Subscribe to us on Instagram at Monroe Mustangs, or we'll have this video on IGTV as well. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. Thanks for listening. Everyone take care, stay safe, and we'll see you next week.
Sounds great, David. Appreciate it.